1, 2, 3, 4.
And welcome back to It's Not a Sport, Season 3, Episode 26. We are almost done with the year, getting ready for Game of the Years, starting with probably my most anticipated game of this year, Cyberpunk, starting real soon, next month. News-wise this week, not a whole lot going on. We got some PlayStation updates. They showed off the UI a little bit. We'll talk about all that later in the episode, but for the main talk, this week I wanted to talk about horror games. What makes a good horror game for me? Now, we're going to talk about that soon, but quick reminder, as always, make sure to leave a like, follow, and subscribe. It really helps me out. If you want to listen to all of our past shows that are up on our YouTube channel, you can also listen on Spotify, SoundCloud, and iTunes as well. All the links will be found in the description below, including our social media as well. So, with that being said, let's get into our main talk, which is horror games. What makes a good horror game? I wanted to talk about this with Halloween coming out, and the most recent really good scary horror game that I played would be Resident Evil 2. And I kind of want to compare this, or the remake of Resident Evil 2, and I kind of want to compare this to also the remake of Resident Evil 3 and why I think that was more disliked compared to the remake of Resident Evil 2. And really, it comes down to two really big design factors, I think, in a horror game. And that has to be with being underpowered, right? So difficulty, you can say, is a big part of the horror game. If we look at Resident Evil 2 remake, for example, you are consistently at a deficit in terms of resources, in terms of Mr. X is unstoppable. You cannot stop him. He will always come for you, which makes the player fear him. You don't know when he's going to appear. You don't know what he's going to do next. You don't know how you can stop him because you can't stop him. That type of being underpowered really plays into a scary game. For instance, if we take another example, I just recently played Celeste, which also has a portion of not really in terms of balance, but in terms of difficulty, where my heart is racing and I'm fearful of failure mostly because of how difficult the game is. So what makes a good horror game, I would say, is its difficulty. You want it to be somewhat hard. You want it to be against you. You don't want it to be easy and just steamroll through it. You want the player to have a sense of failure. You want the player to fail, to overcome these challenges, because it's the fear of failure that is making that game scary. Of course, with its aesthetic and setting as well, but it's really that fear that drives it. So I wanted to bring that up because now if we look into a game where that's very successful in Resident Evil 2 remake, and then we move that to Resident Evil 3 remake, where you get a rocket launcher, you get a grenade launcher, you get all these fucking auto Uzi and all these sort of overpowered weapons that take away from the feel of failure, because you can't fail because you have so many powerful and so many good resources that really even out the playing field. And that's when it stops being more of a horror game and more of an action game, which has been always Resident Evil's really hard balance between horror and action. But I also recently just watched a streamer of mine play Silent Hill 4. And looking at that game, he was playing on hard difficulty. But, of course, as a modern of that game design, you were consistently underpowered. You were, he didn't have a lot of resources. He didn't have a lot of health, and he had to use his brain, and it was the fear of failure, but also what drove him to move on within the game space and the game world. So that's the first big one that I want to point out. The second big fear that I think drives horror games, okay, is the fear of the unknown. Okay, so what I mean by that is that in a horror game, there's sort of like jump scares and etc etc. What really scares me is that you don't know what's coming next. You don't know if Mr. X is going to come out through that door or is he going to come behind you. So when he comes behind you, it surprises you because he's there. You didn't know he was there. If you know what is coming, which oftentimes you do, and it's become so predictable over the years that you definitely know what's coming, it takes away that scary factor, that scary fear factor. If you're playing an RPG and you don't know, the boss, you fought the boss a couple times, and then he throws out an entirely new, different move that you were not prepared for, that maybe he has a 1% chance of doing or something like that. That's the fear of the unknown, because now you're fearful of that move wiping your team or that move coming out and doing something which empowers more the fear of failure. I think that's why Resident Evil 7 was so successful, because even though that game was very creepy, a lot of sessions of that game you were alone, there weren't any enemies, and then when enemies popped out, it was fearful because you didn't know when that monster was coming. Now, of course, this only works once. It jump scares, like a lot of the scares for me in Resident Evil 2, it wasn't really like, oh, is there a zombie behind this door? It's, where is there a zombie in this locker that's gonna fall out and attack me? That's the more of the fear, because I expect a zombie to be behind a door in the next room. I don't expect a zombie to be in the locker or on a ceiling fan or in the vents or something like that. I don't expect that. So that fear of the unknown really drives a horror game. Now, of course, the other big section of this would be aesthetics, how the game feels, how the game looks, how the monsters feel, what they do, etc etc. But we can also, I just want to apply this game to a game like Sekiro, where you are also consistently underpowered and you fear what type of enemies and stuff lay ahead. I think that's why, for me, Dark Souls is one of the scariest horror games I've ever played, because it capitalizes on these two factors in their game design, and that's what really makes a really scary horror game. So hope you enjoyed that quick talk. I just want to talk about, it's Halloween. If you want to play those games, check out my list. Check out the old scary games. There's tons of scary games out there. Resident Evil 2 Remake's a good one. The Evil Within's a good one. If Dark Souls, again, I just mentioned, is a very scary game. Soma, Silent Hill, all these games I have up here on the list are great. The new Resident Evil, Outlast, are all decently very scary games. So definitely check that out. Dead Space 2. See, even Bloodborne's on here. So those are some recommendations that I have. Definitely check those out if you want to. It's Halloween. I hope you guys are going to have a wonderful pre-Halloween weekend. Now, as always, let's get into some of that news. All right, and we are back with some of the news. Again, not a whole lot of news this week. It's a very, very small, stagnated week. They did release a video talking about the PlayStation UI, kind of showing off what it looks like, what some of the new features. So you could definitely check that out. It's a video up on YouTube. Go check that out. It's nothing huge. I don't think anything's really crazy or anything's revolutionary in terms of change. They added this new kind of like hint system or like progression system that you can see. I think it's called like activities with your friends that you could see. And like a lot of those changes also, like you can only get like a video of hints and stuff with PlayStation Plus. So maybe this is replacing achievements or trophies. Maybe it's not. Who knows? Basically now all the PlayStation reveal what's inside and the UI is all out there now. So definitely check that out. But that's just a quick reminder. That's a cool video that came out earlier this week. So I want to talk about some of the news, and again, it's not a whole lot, but the first one, Tower of God soundtrack is on Spotify. If you are a fan of music or a fan of anime, and this is one of my favorite mangas out there, Tower of God's a webtoons manga. It's Korean. It's very long and very popular. So if you're looking for something to read, definitely check this one out. It's one of my favorites. definitely up there with maybe like Tokyo Ghoul's and One Piece. But the soundtrack for the anime came out, and it is really good. Some really nice bangers. Listen to Royal Games and Cocoon are some really good songs on there. So if you're a fan of music, definitely check this one out. Now, also, Mass Effect Legendary Edition rated in Korea. It's possibly announced on In7 Day, which is November 7th, I believe is what In7 Day is. So this has been rumored to go around in a while. The remasters or remakes of Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. So we will see. There's some cool rumor news that came out. The Neo no Kun developer, Level 5, is shutting down in North America, which is really, really, like, I guess, sad that we see studios shutting down, especially in North America, but it's probably due mostly to the pandemic. But I just want to bring that one up. Rockstar, big, been making money off of GTA for years. They just bought Crackdown 2 developer Ruffian Games and rebranded it to Rockstar Dundee. So that's huge. I don't know what big moves they could do this. Maybe they want to support fucking GTA some more, or the other game Red Dead Redemption some more. Or maybe they're actually making GTA 6 and they need a little help and they bought a studio to do that. Who knows? Japanese Nintendo is reducing the cost of Joy-Cons in Japan. So if you don't know what's going on with this and why they're doing this, or single Joy-Cons, it's to combat the price of drift in Joy-Cons. So for a while, they've been under a lot of heat from the community where the Joy-Cons have drift after a while, which means, if you don't use it, if it doesn't move at all, it just drifts to a different direction, which, hurts gameplay. And people have, sued Nintendo over this, and recently they've taken a permanent stand saying that it doesn't hurt anybody, but they're reducing the cost of single ones because they're like $80 to buy a new pair or something like that. So this is them trying to, I guess, mingle with the community a bit, because Joy-Con drifts is ridiculous and they should fix it, but they probably don't want to fix it because it takes too much money or something to do so. So that pretty much concludes this week's news. Let's get into esports. We already know that Overwatch League is over with. The championship happened a couple weeks ago. We talked about that in last week's episode. So we only have League of Legends left next. That's coming up. And they played the quarterfinal games. All the quarterfinal games are gone. So who's moving forward to semifinals? Well, let's talk about that. And Top Esports versus Fnatic. Top Esports won 3-2 and moved forward to semifinals. And then Sunning versus JD. Sunning won 3-1 and moves forward to semifinals. So it'll be Sunning versus Top Esports in the semifinals. And then we have Gen G getting 3-0'd by G2. So G2 moves forward into the semifinals. And then Damwon Gaming 3-0's Dragon X, and Damwon Gaming moves forward into the semifinals. So what are our possibilities? Well, we have Top Esports winning their semifinal match against Sunny and they move forward to finals, or Sunny wins against Top Esports and they move forward to finals, or we have G2 versus Damwon and G2 wins and G2 moves forward to finals. And then we have Damwon versus G2, and if Damwon wins, they move forward to finals. And then whoever wins the finals is, of course, the 2020 World Championship winners of League of Legends. And the games so far, they've been okay. I haven't been able to catch them. They're really late. They're like 5 in the morning where I am, and they're best of fives. And then with school and all sort of other work, it's really hard to watch the VODs currently. But I've heard they've been some pretty good games. I have heard also a lot of complaints about mostly how this bracket is and how the system and lines up is, because a lot of really there with the Dragon X versus Gen G or Damwon. Dragon X versus Damwon, where that's basically the Korean finals. We've already saw that match, and seeing it again is really fucking boring. Along with that could have been the case versus Top versus JD if JD wanted to semifinals. So it's been really kind of boring. I think this world has been, honestly, overall so far, the worst one ever, in my opinion, because of how the meta is. The meta is very, very, very stale. Nothing's really new, nothing's really changing, nothing's really developing, because there's it's just really safe picks. It's very jungle oriented. It's really kind of a boring meta. Hopefully we'll see a lot of changes up with preseason. But that again, that's a lot of changes and a lot of weights with the items. But right now it's very, very stale. Because of that, it makes the tournament very, very stale. It makes the teams that are really good at this style of play there, which is mostly Chinese and Korean teams, and it's been a very, I think, boring tournament overall. But that's just my opinion. I'm sure that you guys watching have your own opinions. Now, last but not least, let's talk about games. We don't have a whole lot of games coming out. Pokemon Sword and Shield, the Crown Tundra, comes out October 22nd. That's the next expansion for Pokemon Sword and Shield. We have a Transformers game, More Than Meets the Eye. That's not what it's called. It's called Battlegrounds, but that comes out October 23rd. We have the Legend of Heroes, Trials of the Cold Steel 4 coming out for PS4. Watch Dogs Legions is probably the big end release for this year. That comes out for PS4, Xbox One, Stadia, and PC on October 23rd. So that's the third Watch Dogs game, the one where you get to take over the granny. Then we have Pikeman 3 Deluxe coming out for the Switch on October 30th. Auto Chess for the PS4 on the 31st. And then we go into November, which we will be waiting. If you're in November, you got some good ones to look forward to. Assassin's Creed Valhalla comes out on the November 10th. Borderlands 3 for the Xbox X and Series X comes out on November 10th. We have the new Destiny DLC, I think. Beyond Light comes out on November 10th, as well as the Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition that comes out on November 10th. We have Fortnite coming out again, and Gears of War 5 coming out again, because I think November 10th is also when the Xbox Series X releases, so that's why there's a whole bunch of replayed games coming out. And then on November 12th we have the PlayStation coming out, PS5, so we also have a whole bunch of rehash games coming out. And then we have on November 13th we have Call of Duty coming out, and then Cyberpunk kind of wrapping out on November 19th. So a lot of re-releases and new releases coming out in November, so definitely look forward to that. Anyway, that's gonna be this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, leave a like, follow, and subscribe. All the links are down in the description below. If you want to listen to all of our past shows that are up on our YouTube, you can listen to us on Spotify, SoundCloud, and iTunes. It really helps us out. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Give me feedback. If you want me to talk about something and research it, I will gladly do it. So make sure to, let me know. Also, check out our social media. Instagram is Not a Sport to You. That link will be also found in the description below. This is your host, Salty Waffles, signing off, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful climb.